don't push me, यार. I know you've paid me $20,000, but that doesn't give you a right to push me. हाँ, और दूसरी बात मेरा अवार्ड पक्का रखना यार, इसलिए मैं आपको बताइए होस्ट कर रहा हूँ. हाँ, the award. What? अवार्ड नहीं मिलेगा मुझे? सर प्लीज. सर मम्मी को बोल दिया मैंने, प्लीज. अभी लाइव. पहले बताना चाहिए ना सर. I'm so sorry, all these negotiations should have happened before, but ठीक है, we have to start now. So a grand welcome कैसे करना चाहिए आपका? भैया इनसे बढ़िया स्टाइल तो हो नहीं सकता. तो नमस्कार, आदाब, सत श्री अकाल, देवर सजदा, बहुत बहुत स्वागत है आपका. और बाबूजी हमेशा कहा करते थे कि कोई भी बीवी या किसी फंक्शन के लिए 2-3 घंटे से पहले तैयार नहीं होती और कोशिश करने वालों की हार नहीं होती. अरे भैया ये उनके नहीं, हमारे बाबूजी कहा करते थे. और मैं तो कहता हूं भैया जितने भी मर्द हैं उन्हें इस बात के लिए अवार्ड देना चाहिए कि भैया 2-2, 3-3 घंटे ब्यूटी पार्लर के बाहर स्कूटर पर बैठ के वेट करते हैं आए. तो ये अवार्ड नहीं, उस अवार्ड की बात हम नहीं कर रहे हैं. वी आर टॉकिंग फॉर सम सीरियस अवार्ड्स दिस इवनिंग. Hello and welcome to the inaugural Buzzin Content Awards and Conversations presented by Viacom 18's Tipping Point along with associate sponsor Z by Scope, radio partner Ish 104.8 FM, Ish 104.8 FM, Ish 104.8 FM. मैं वहीं से हूं इसलिए ओवर प्रमोशन. किंग खान शाहरुख खान से कुछ तो सीखा है मैंने. And this is supported by the Advertising Club. I am your host. My name is Lucky and lucky to be a part of this event. And I work for 104.8 Ishq FM, which has been driving love for the brands through unique content initiatives. First of all, thank you all for joining us during the live broadcast. For the next few hours, we'll have power-packed knowledge sessions where our expert moderators will take up the relevant issues that will shape up the growth of content marketing in India. And they'll be joined by content practitioners from across stakeholders, be it brands, be it content creators or content platforms. One of the topics we'll be touching upon is the art of creating troll-proof content. Sounds interesting, right? Given the way brands are being trolled by an organized social media army every now and then. So stay tuned with us as we'll keep revealing such engaging sessions, and we promise you we'll have food for thought takeaways at end of every session. In the second part, the winners of Buzzin Content Awards 2020 will be revealed. About 60 winners from 87 finalists will flaunt the first shining Buzzin Content Awards trophy. The awards will be giving you a kick. Sir, kamal ke kick milegi aapko. Yes, the much needed kick to produce more kick-ass pieces. And what better way to get that kick from the people who hold authority in content marketing? So we have assembled 30 such content marketing practitioners to evaluate your works through a fully automated judging process in 2 layers. So the first at the grand jury level and finally at the executive jury level. So get ready as we kick off a kick-ass evening full of learning and honoring great pieces of content by brands. So setting the tone of this evening is our keynote speaker, Jason Miller, who is currently the head of brand at ActiveCampaign. So his previous roles include head of brand marketing at Microsoft and global head of content and social marketing for LinkedIn. He is a prolific keynote speaker, digital marketing instructor at the University of California, Berkeley, best-selling author of Welcome to the Funnel, Proven Tactics to Turn Your Social Media and Content Marketing Up to 11, and a 2018 finalist for CMI's Content Marketer of the Year. Though I'm a radio jockey, but it's now the moment for me to turn into a news anchor. All right, we are moving on. We are reaching to somebody who joined. Control, Lucky, control. Sorry, control karta hu. I'll be in my tone only. So let's go to Jason, who will be joined by Buzzin content editor Akanksha Shrivastava post his keynote.
Thanks for that intro, Lucky. Very much appreciated. And thank you, Buzzin Content and Best Media Info, for having me today, coming to you live from London. I am not from London originally. If I don't have the accent, but I'm originally from San Francisco. Moved over here about 4.5 years ago and been loving it ever since. But I'm really excited here to talk to you about creativity over everything. This is something that's been near and dear to my heart. And I think it's been essential to my success as a content marketer over the years, from Marketo to LinkedIn to Microsoft and now here at ActiveCampaign. So I'm going to break this down into 3 parts over the next 10 minutes or so. The what, the why, and the how. I'm going to keep this simple and we're going to cruise through this pretty quickly. So get ready. So I think it's important to step back as we start this journey and define what creativity means to you. Now, I like to take inspiration from others and sort of pull this together, find the best bits, borrow them, put my own spin on that, and push those ideas forward. I've often created sort of a mission statement on creativity and what it means to me and my team, and how it's going to push our campaigns forward and help us break through into further success with our content. Now, I was chatting with my good friend Ann Hanley just last night, and I was telling her about this keynote. And I said, Ann, how do you define creativity? If you don't know Ann Hanley, she's the Chief Content Officer at Marketing Props, one of the most brilliant content marketers on the planet, a brilliant creative. She's a mentor to me, a friend, and she wrote the book Content Rules, which is the Bible for all things content marketing. So she literally texted this to me last night, and I'm going to read this because I pulled it off my phone this morning to share with you. But Ann Hanley defining creativity. To me, creativity means not accepting the first idea or solution or way of expressing yourself that pops into your head, but instead thinking of unexpected alternatives in search of the best possible idea or solution. I think that is a stellar definition of creativity. And I think it's interesting because if you ask a room full of marketers to define creativity, you'll get many different answers. Almost none of them will be similar. And some of them will be more insightful than the others. None of them would necessarily be wrong, but I've asked marketers over the years, some of the most top creative, most celebrated creatives on the planet, I've asked them this very question, and I want to share this with you. Just a few examples here. So Daniel Bonner, who's the Global Chief Creative Officer at Wunderman Thompson, an award-winning creative agency, he describes creativity as the capacity to have an original thought. Very simple, elegant. Phil Beadle, the iconoclastic educator and author, told me that creativity is the most elegant possible solution to the constraints that you're under. And don't forget that creativity very often thrives under constraints. It's an interesting challenge there. Furthermore, Stephen Muma's description, another one, quite simple and elegant, problem solving with relevance and novelty. But I think when you pull all this together and you think about what does it mean when you actually add creativity to your campaigns, to your marketing, to your brands, to your personal brand, that I was sitting down with John Muskell, who is from McCann Agency. He is one of the most celebrated creatives on the planet. He won more than 60 Cannes Lion Awards, and I was speaking with him at Cannes Lion a little while ago, and I asked him, I said, "What does it mean, John, when you add creativity to your campaigns or your brand?" And he says he calls that creative effectiveness, and that's giving your brand something money can't buy. So there you have it. A few definitions for you. Hopefully that will inspire you to create your own definition and turn that into a mission statement that will help direct you and keep you pointed towards your creativity North Star. Now, let's talk about the why. So this is important because I think in a world where any edge you have in general intelligence or industry-specific knowledge is sort of ever decreasing worth, because that one cognitive skill that can give you an edge over any sort of data recall, which the machines are winning at right now, that one cognitive skill that you can focus on as a marketer, or that ability, is creativity. How do you sharpen your creativity? And it's interesting to me because it comes up all the time with machines. Machines are creativity and AI. Machines aren't very good at creativity right now because they don't really understand the relevance involved. So it's not only a differentiator between human and machine, but it's also a differentiator between marketer and marketer, brand versus brand. Creativity can play a huge role in how you stand out and how you break through. Dr. Michael Bloomfield, who's one of the top writers on AI and creativity on LinkedIn, has a quote that I love where he says, "If you want to future-proof your brain, make it more creative." And again, I agree 100%. That one cognitive skill or cognitive ability you can focus on is becoming more creative, learning how to be more creative. Now, it's not only Dr. Michael Bloomfield and myself who feel this way, of course. The World Economic Forum, in their list of top skills, most important skills in 2015, creativity barely cracked the top 10. If you look at their list in 2020, creativity is number 3. If you look further and dive into LinkedIn's report that came out this year on the top soft skills in demand right now, creativity is number 1. So I think that speaks volumes as creativity as a differentiator. And it makes you think back to machines creating art. You've probably seen machines create Rembrandts, or write a Broadway musical, or even write a Christmas jingle, a Christmas song, which I've heard one this year, and it was, quite frankly, it was terrible. It begs the question: is that machine actually being creative, or is it simply mimicking the artist? So again, as machines become much more sophisticated in processing data and automating these mundane tasks for us marketers, it opens up that freedom for us to focus on flexing that creative muscle. So I would even go as far as saying that creativity is the highest form of intelligence, because it goes beyond knowledge recall and goes into knowledge creation. So think about that. That's the what, the why, and now we're going to talk about the how. Now, I want to go back to my text conversation with Ann Hanley last night. And again, I pulled this from our message, but I think it sets up this last part perfectly. And she says, our bodies and brains are lazy. They would rather subscribe to the first easiest idea or solution, even if it's not the best. Our creativity is what calls that laziness out, challenges it, and says, wait 1 minute there, you. Is that all you got? Is that your best effort, your best work, your best self? And this is perfectly sets up the argument for the importance of creativity. Is your campaign, is your creativity, is your copy, is it as good as it can be? Are you celebrating mediocrity? Are you pushing things out the door just to get them done? Are you checking boxes just to push the next piece of content out the door? That's the wrong way to approach this. So how do you apply creativity? How do you break through? Well, from my experience, my best campaigns have always been inspired by the things around me, the things I'm passionate about. I have a notebook. I take notes. I take pictures on the way when I'm traveling to work, when I'm traveling to the office, or when I was traveling to the office before the pandemic. I would see subway posters. In fact, one of the most successful campaigns I did at LinkedIn was inspired by a subway poster I saw for Liam Gallagher's new album. Another successful campaign we did came from inspiration from holding a jazz record in my hand and being inspired by the cover. So it's important to. I don't really think there's any new original ideas happening. I think the key here is to find something that inspires you, find something that you're passionate about, push it forward, put your own unique spin on that. And that's key. There's a great book called Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon that talks about that very thing, that very tactic. So again, this leads into keeping a growth mindset, not being satisfactory with what you're looking at or where you're at, being open to new ideas from around you, being a good collaborator, the spirit of collaboration and partnering across different business lines in your company or different disciplines in marketing. Understand how all these things work together. How can you bring a more creative approach to that? Creativity just doesn't apply to one thing. It applies to everything you do, your approach to how you do it. It's very critical to understand that. Being constantly curious. I'm always learning new things, and I'm always finding new inspiration to keep me going. I very rarely have writer's block because I have so many ideas. Now, I have hundreds of ideas that some I might use, some I might never use, but I never throw anything away. It's all about lots of tiny little experiments and lots of tiny bits of inspiration that I can pull from and push these ideas forward. I also think, it's important to understand what influences you and what you're passionate about. I love music. I'm a huge music fan. I'm a huge Seinfeld fan. I think every piece of content I've ever created has some sort of element or hat tip to Seinfeld or Axl Rose or AC/DC or something. It's just sort of my personal brand, injecting my personality into my content. That is where I think I've found the most success with creativity and what keeps me energized. And I'll caution you with one last thing here. You can't outsource this, especially with someone who's not a long-term partner. I've seen organizations try to outsource creativity, and it never works because, especially in a short-term relationship, because that outsourced party really has no vested interest in long-term results. And as content marketers, we need to slow down. We need to be more patient. This is not a volume game. It's a relevance game, and it's a game of creativity to leverage that to break through and do something really remarkable. So that's how I think about creativity. And I'll tell you this, the other thing that comes up is creativity is a muscle. you're not necessarily born with it. You can learn how to be more creative. And I think that's the more you try, the more you practice, the more you're inspired to do creative things and think in a creative manner and approach things in this unique way, the more confidence you get. A few little wins, you get more confident. You want to try it more and more and more. And it becomes a snowball effect of where you're just becoming more creative. You're learning to be more creative. And I think that's key. So creativity over everything. I believe in that. It's been a huge part of my my success over the past years, and I think it's key and critical for all content marketers moving forward. So I did want to wrap this up with a quick quote from I usually quote Kiss or Guns N' Roses or some heavy metal band, but I found this one quote from George Michael, who before his untimely death a few years ago, that sums it up perfectly. I printed it out. I have this on my desk at work when the office was open. I have it on my wall here. I love this quote. I think it sums up my presentation perfectly. And it's from George Michael. And he says, "I watch people who are not driven by creativity anymore. And I think how dull it must be to produce the same kind of thing. If you don't feel you're reaching something new, then don't do it." George Michael. Love this guy. Thank you so much for having me today. Hopefully you found this interesting and inspiring. But go out there, be more creative, take more risks. Safe is the new boring. Do something new. Cheers.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for the lovely insights that how should one keep creativity above everything else. And I have a few questions to ask. That is there a way that one can not face creative block?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, I think it's easily solved. I think we're a little bit too hard on ourselves, like trying to force creative ideas when there isn't one happening, right? So the way that I found around this, and even as musicians, I'm a big music fan, so I talk to musicians about this a lot, as well as authors and writers. And I think the biggest thing is just to keep a list of things that inspire you. So I have, I carry my phone, I carry a little notebook around with me. And whenever I'm going through London, going to work or going to wherever, I'm just constantly looking for sources of inspiration. So I do, as a marketer, I do look at a bunch of advertising. And when I see great advertising, I make a note of it. And the thing there to keep in mind is, there's really nothing original anymore. So I think creativity takes inspiration from ideas and doesn't necessarily steal them, but it gives you a starting point to kind of put your own thoughts and your own spin on that and push that idea forward. And I think that's where the best ideas come from. One of the biggest campaigns I mentioned in the talk that I did at LinkedIn was born from an idea of a subway poster that I just saw on the way to work. I snapped a shot and wrote a little note. So I think every time you see something that inspires you or that gives you an idea, don't think you'll remember it, because I guarantee you won't. Take a picture, write it down, and so you constantly have that that sort of rolling list of ideas. And it's about how curious you are as well. So who are the people who inspire you? Find a list of people who inspire you. Follow them on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. Find a list of books that inspire you. Take some courses it's always about growing and learning and finding these little bits of inspiration around the way. And once you find one, then you can sort of test it out to see if it works. How can you apply this to your content marketing campaign? How can you apply it to your comms? James Altucher, brilliant author, entrepreneur, said, lots of tiny little experiments, right? And then you find the one that works and you build it into a bigger story. And that's how I sort of think there's no excuse for creative block. If you have creative block, take a break, go for a jog, go to a museum, do something fun that inspires you, and find a new approach.
Sure. So what are the things that content marketers should do to keep upgrading their creative skills?
So again, I think it goes back to just being constantly creative. I mean, as a content marketer, I talk a lot about sort of the one-dimensional marketer. I mentioned that as well in the talk. And it's about, I kind of started off in the music business. I wasn't really supposed to be a marketer by any means. But when I got into tech marketing, I went in at a startup level. And I learned very quickly that that you can't just be good at one thing. You have to grow. You have to understand how the different marketing disciplines work together. So, am I an email marketing expert? Not necessarily, but I can write a hell of a subject line if I need to. Am I an SEO expert? No, but I understand really well how the internet, how search impacts my content and how to be ranked for. And again, I think it goes across the different marketing disciplines: lead gen, lead nurturing, lead scoring, copywriting, all these things. how can you understand how these things fit together? And if you can do that, it allows you to get a vision for how your content can impact all across the funnel, but also not only all across the funnel, but also all across the organization and all across this multi-channel approach that we should all be embracing. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is you never stop learning. I think Gene Simmons from KISS said that. Never, and he's the world's most successful entertainment entrepreneur. Yeah, it's never stop learning. Always try to better yourself, either through being more creative or learning a new skill. And I think that's key. All content marketers, if you want to be a marketing leader, it's key to understanding how the different marketing disciplines pull together, so you know what's possible with your campaigns.
Mm-hmm. So because the session is all about creativity over everything, so there are certain business categories who are very technical content, mostly informative, large textual write-ups and things like that. So such content tends to get boring. So how can one make such content not boring and engaging for the consumers?
So that's another great question. It comes up quite a bit, especially in the world of B2B. I mean, when I started at Marketo, marketing automation was my topic, not the coolest topic in the world. It's very seemingly boring and technical. But the way that I approached it is I brought a new sort of B2C perspective to B2B marketing. And I brought these music analogies in that was very close to my heart and that I'm passionate about, these stories. And I made very complex marketing scenarios relatable and memorable by relating them back to a music analogy. And it was fun, and people learned, and people wanted to be close to that. So I don't think there's any excuse anymore. There's another great story around, I think it was a phone case company called Otterbox, and they basically just make phone cases. And how is that cool? Well, they went to conferences and networking events, and they asked their customers to try to destroy these phone cases, and they couldn't. And they made these really low budget videos of their customers trying to destroy these cases, and they couldn't do it. And it turned into really fun content. I think creativity is often pigeonholed into creative outputs, and that's not necessarily the approach you need to take here. How can you approach everything in a creative manner? How can you approach not only naming conventions for campaigns, but copywriting and actually the actual creative output? But you can take a creative approach to almost any scenario you'll come across as a marketer. And I think if you shift into that mindset, then the seemingly boring becomes something much more relatable. So I don't think there's any excuse anymore for boring products. I think there's plenty of examples out there to take inspiration from. But it's at the end of the day, you're a content marketer. You're answering that number one question on your prospects' minds. You're solving problems. How can you take it from a different angle and use a creative approach that no one's ever thought of before, and put a new spin on it? So again, borrow some ideas, find some inspiration. It's happening out there. You just need to do a little bit of digging, but there's no excuse for boring anymore.
So because while you were answering this question, another question that came to my mind is that while you're taking inspiration from other content pieces that the people are creating around the world, and don't you tend to create the similar kind of content then, because you have taken inspiration from some work? So your content is also kind of similar to their work.
I don't think it's. I mean, I think it's dangerous to think about, copying something directly. But I think if you look at some of the best campaigns in the world from the best marketers, I mean, there's a reason that they're the best at their crafts, because they've taken ideas before them and pushed them forward into new ideas. So I think if you look at, an example that I always look at, Jimi Hendrix, one of the greatest guitar players in the world. He took the national anthem of the United States and played it at Woodstock in front of tens of thousands of people. But the way he played it, he interpreted it. He took the original as inspiration, but he interpreted it into a way that no one ever even imagined this thing happening, or how this song could sound on a guitar. And it was passionate, and it was powerful, and it gives me chills just talking about it. But that's how you have to think about these things. It's not copying, and there shouldn't be any sort of concern over it being similar. It should be more about how you just kind of massage it and craft it and smash it and spin it and put your own unique ideas into it and push it forward. So I would see how people would be a little bit cautious about borrowing. I'm not saying copy. I'm saying borrow the idea, put your own spin on it, push it forward. And that could be from different industries too. So some of the best examples of inspiration I've found had nothing to do with B2B marketing or tech marketing or anything. So it's almost sort of a juxtaposition on what you can find that doesn't fit, but you find a creative way to make it fit. And it gives you that aha moment. And I think it's a customer wow moment that people look for. And there's certainly not enough of them. And again, I think it goes back to, are you playing it safe? There's a picture I have on my wall here that I got from Hugh McLeod, one of my inspirations. He wrote a book called Ignore Everybody, Keys to Creativity. Brilliant book, brilliant for inspiration. And he sent this to me. It says, nothing like playing it safe for getting yourself killed. And what that means to me, it's pretty much my slogan. It's if you play it safe, then the results you're going to get are safe, right? Safe is the new boring. And I think we need to push and push. We need to slow down. We need to focus on more relevance, focus on more creativity, and actually create something that people are going to actually appreciate and inspire them.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you for taking out for us all the way from UK. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.